The metal swing creaked in the late afternoon heat, a soft, steady sound that Malik Carter usually found calming. His daughter's laughter rose and fell with each arc, bright against the low hum of the city park. Malik stood close, one hand on the chain, the other already lifting in instinctive compliance as a police cruiser rolled past a basketball court and slowed, too slowly, to a stop. He felt it before he heard it. The shift, the way nearby parents glanced over and then suddenly remembered their phones. Gravel crunched. A door shut. Sunglasses in the officer's eyes as he approached, one hand resting on his belt like a warning left unfinished. "Sir," the officer said, loud enough for the playground to hear, "what do you think you're doing?" Malik's chest tightened. He eased the swing to a stop. His daughter frowned, confused. Malik kept his voice even, careful. "Playing with my kids." The officer's gaze swept the park, dismissive. "We got a call. Suspicious behavior. You don't look like you belong here." The sentence landed like a slap, clean, practiced, undeniable. Lena, Malik's wife, started toward them, then hesitated as the officer raised his voice again. Stay back. This doesn't concern you." A hush spread. The swing swayed empty between Malik and the badge. "Daddy," his daughter whispered, fingers tightening in his shirt. "Are we in trouble?" The officer reached for his cuffs. Malik realized, in that frozen second, that this moment would not end here, and that whatever came next would demand more than silence. Malik Carter pushed the swing with one steady hand, the chain clicking in a calm, metallic rhythm that usually settled his nerves. Aisha's laugh cut through the playground noise, bright and fearless, her braids lifting as she arced forward. Behind Malik, the twins argued over whose turn it was on the slide, their voices bouncing off plastic and sun-warmed rubber. Saturdays were supposed to feel like this. Normal. Safe. He noticed a police cruiser when its shadow slid across the sandbox. Tires crunched too slowly on gravel, deliberate. Malik kept pushing, counting breaths, refusing to stiffen. He'd learned that stiffness invited questions. The officer stepped out, sunglasses already on, hand resting near his belt as if it belonged there. Parents glanced over, then away, a practiced choreography of survival. "Sir," the officer said, voice clipped, "I need you to stop right there." Malik eased the swing to a halt. Aisha frowned. "Daddy." "It's okay," Malik said, soft, measured. He turned, hands visible. "What seems to be the problem, officer?" The officer scanned the playground like it was evidence. "We had a call. Suspicious activity. Unattended children." "They're my kids," Malik said. "My wife's right there." He nodded toward Lena, who had frozen mid-step, phone in hand, eyes sharp with fear she refused to show. The officer smirked. "That's so? Because this doesn't look like supervision to me." Lena approached slowly. "Is there an issue?" "Step back," the officer said, louder now. "I'm talking to him." Malik felt the familiar heat rise, the old calculation ticking. "Say less. Smile. Don't escalate. We come here every weekend," he said. "Ask anyone." The officer leaned closer. "You don't tell me how to do my job." Aisha tugged Malik's sleeve. "Did I do something wrong?" The words landed wrong. Heavy. Malik swallowed. "No, baby." "Hands where I can see them," the officer ordered. Malik obeyed. Phones lifted at the edges of the park, then dipped away. Silence pressed in, thick as humidity. The officer's radio crackled, a reminder of backup Malik couldn't see. "You fit a description," the officer said, "of a father." Malik asked before he could stop himself. The officer's jaw tightened. "Careful." Lena stepped forward. "We know our rights." The officer turned, cold. "You can learn them at the station if you keep interfering." Malik felt the ground tilt. He looked at his kids, at the way Aisha's smile had vanished. The swing creaked in the breeze, empty. Somewhere nearby, a siren wailed, distant but approaching. "Daddy," Aisha whispered, "are they taking you away?" The officer's hand closed around his cuffs, metal catching the sun. Malik understood then that this wasn't about a call. It was about power and who was allowed to keep it. He met Lena's eyes, a question and a promise passing between them. as the officer stepped closer. Children's laughter returned in fragments, cautious, as if sound itself had learned to wait for permission. Malik tasted metal in his mouth. Imagined headlines that never named him right. Imagined paperwork swallowing hours, days. He thought of the camp brochures on his kitchen counter, the way kids saluted at the closing ceremony, the way officers shook his hand and thanked him for believing. None of that lived here now. Here was a badge, a rulebook bent by tone, a crowd trained to disappear. Malik breathed, slow and deliberate, and chose to remember who he was before the cuffs, before the watching eyes taught him to shrink. He knew the moment would echo, that silence would become testimony later. For now, he held still, anchoring his children with his gaze, promising safety with posture alone. The officer waited, savoring the pause. Somewhere a camera finally stayed raised. Malik felt the story choose him, felt fear braid itself with resolve, and understood that this day would not end at the gate. It would travel, named or not, until someone answered. The cuffs hovered, the choice suspended, and Malik waited for whatever came next, knowing the playground would remember even if the city pretended not to. He steadied his breath, lifted his chin, and refused to disappear. The moment stretched, waiting. Everyone watched without moving. Time seemed to stall. There. The second cruiser arrived without sirens, which somehow made it worse. It slid up beside the first like an accomplice, doors opening in quiet coordination. Malik watched the way authority multiplied. Not louder, not faster, just heavier. 2 officers stepped out. One nodded at the first officer without looking at Malik at all. "What have we got?" the newcomer asked. "Suspicious behavior," the first officer said. Man refused to cooperate. Malik blinked. "I cooperated. I stopped. My hands are up." The newcomer glanced at Malik's hands, then at Lena. "Are you recording?" Lena's thumb hovered over her screen. "Yes." "You can't film an active investigation," he said. "Yes, I can," Lena replied, voice steady but tight. "This is a public park." The officer exhaled through his nose. "Sir," he said to Malik, "do you have identification?" Malik nodded slowly. "In my wallet. Back right pocket." "Don't reach," the first officer snapped. He stepped closer, blocking Malik's view of his children. "You move when I tell you." Aisha's fingers dug into Malik's shirt. "Daddy." "I'm here," Malik said, not turning his head. "I'm right here." The second officer motioned to the kids. "Why don't we have Mom take them over there?" he said, pointing toward the benches, "while we sort this out." "They stay with me," Malik said. "That's not a request," the first officer replied. Lena stepped in front of the twins, her body a shield. "You're not separating us." A park employee in a green vest hovered nearby, hands wringing. "Is everything okay?" he asked no one in particular. The first officer didn't look at him. "Sir, we may need you to detain this individual." "Detain?" Malik echoed. "For what?" Failure to comply, the officer said easily, like reading a menu item. A phone camera stayed raised now. Another followed. The officers noticed. Their voices lowered, edges sanded down. "Let's calm this down," the second officer said. "Sir, ID." Slowly. Malik nodded. "Tell me when." "Now." He reached, deliberate. Leather slid free. He held the wallet open, thumb and forefinger visible. The first officer took it, flipping through with exaggerated care. "Carter," he read. "Address checks out." "So can we go?" Lena asked. "Not yet," the first officer said. "We'll decide that." Minutes stretched. The kid sat on the bench, Aisha leaning against Lena's side, eyes never leaving Malik. The playground noise returned in pieces. Chains clinking, a bowl thumping, a laugh that cut off too quickly. "Any warrants?" the first officer asked into his radio. "Negative," came the reply. The officer sighed, disappointed. He handed the wallet back. "All right," he said. "You're free to go. For now." "For now?" Malik asked. "This park's at issues," the officer said. "Be mindful." "Of what?" Malik said. "Existing." The officer leaned in, voice low. "What's your tone?" Lena laughed once, sharp and humorless. Unbelievable. The second officer cleared his throat. We're done here. As they walked back to their cruisers, the park exhaled. Conversations resumed. Parents looked away. The green-vested employee offered an apologetic shrug. Sorry about that, he said softly. They do what they do. Malik gathered his kids. Aisha clung to him. Why were they mad? She asked. Sometimes, Malik said, choosing each word like glass, people make mistakes. They left the park under watching eyes. In the car, the silence pressed harder than the officer's voice had. The twins stared out the window. Aisha traced circles on Malik's arm. At home, Malik paced the kitchen while Lena set the kids up with cartoons they didn't watch. We can't let this go, she said. They didn't arrest me, Malik said. They want us tired. Afraid. So what? Lena asked. We're just supposed to swallow it. Malik stopped. He thought of the cuffs. The cameras. The way the story almost ended there. We file a complaint, he said. By the book. And when they bury it. Then we dig, Lena said. That night, Malik lay awake listening to the house settle. His phone buzzed, messages from friends who'd seen a clip already circulating, grainy but unmistakable. You okay? That officer was out of line. Be careful. Malik stared at the ceiling. He felt exposed, catalogued. He also felt something else, fragile and dangerous. Resolve. In the morning, he printed the forms. Names. Badge numbers. Times. He wrote until the pen ached, until the event became language, until silence lost its hold. When he finally capped the pen, Malik understood that calling it in had been easy. What came next would not be. The building smelled like old carpet and new paint, a cosmetic fix that didn't quite cover what lived underneath. Malik sat in the plastic chair outside Internal Affairs, a manila folder balanced on his knee. Every page inside a piece of the playground reassembled into language. Dates, times, badge numbers. A transcript Lena had typed at midnight, stopping whenever her hand started to shake. A receptionist slid the glass open without looking up. Name. Malik Carter. She tapped, frowned, tapped again. You can leave the complaint here. I'd like a receipt, Malik said. She paused, eyes lifting for the first time. We don't usually. I'd like a receipt, he repeated. Calm, even. She sighed, printed a slip, and slid it under the glass. Someone will be in touch. When? She shrugged. Case by case. Malik walked out with the slip folded in his wallet like a fragile promise. For the first week, he checked his email obsessively. For the second, he stopped checking at all. Silence arrived dressed as procedure. When the call finally came, it was a blocked number. This is Sergeant Whitmore with Internal Affairs, the voice said. I'm following up. Malik stepped into the hallway at work, the hum of copiers muffled behind him. Yes. We reviewed your submission. Whitmore continued. Based on the information provided, we don't find sufficient evidence of misconduct. Malik closed his eyes. Did you speak to the officer? Yes. To the witnesses? There were no verified witnesses. My wife recorded it. The footage is inconclusive, Whitmore said. We didn't observe a clear violation of policy. What policy covers telling a parent they don't belong in a public park? Malik asked. A pause. Paper shuffled. Sir, officers are afforded discretion. So the complaint is closed. At this time, Malik felt something hollow out behind his ribs. I'd like that in writing. You'll receive a letter. It arrived 3 weeks later, thin as an apology that never came. After careful review, no further action warranted. Malik read it once, then again, as if repetition might reveal a hidden sentence that said, we saw you. At home, Lena set the letter on the table between them. They didn't even pretend. They pretended, Malik said. That's the point. The kids sensed a change. Aisha asked if they could go back to the park. Malik said not yet. The twins stopped asking why. At night, Malik remembered the officer's voice. You don't look like you belong here. He remembered other voices too, layered over the years. A neighbor who asked if he lived in the building. A teacher who assumed he was a help. a donor luncheon where a man complimented his articulation. Each incident small enough to be denied, together forming a map. He thought about the first time he believed cooperation could build trust. Years ago, when the city asked him to sponsor a summer program aimed at bridging gaps. He'd written the check gladly, toured the gym where kids learned drills and discipline, shook hands with officers who talked about mentorship and second chances. He believed in infrastructure, in doing the work quietly. Lena didn't believe in quiet anymore. "They're counting on us getting tired," she said, scrolling through messages from other parents who'd reached out privately after the clip circulated. Same officer, same tone. Nothing happened when we complained. Malik stayed at the names, patterns emerging where he'd once seen exceptions. "If we push," he said, "they push back." "They already did," Lena replied. He met with a city council aide who nodded sympathetically and promised to raise concerns. A community liaison suggested mediation. A police spokesperson emailed a paragraph about commitment to fairness. Each interaction felt like walking through fog, hands waving, shapes never solid. One afternoon, Malik received an invoice reminder for a sponsorship pledge he'd made months earlier. Police youth camp, final payment due. The logo at the top made his jaw tighten. He thought of the kids in uniforms, the banners with smiling faces, the speeches about trust. "That's the same department," Lena said quietly when he showed her. "I know. They'll cash your check and close your case." Malik folded the letter from Internal Affairs into the folder, slid the invoice behind it. "I want to see everything," he said. "Who's assigned where? Who shows up at these events?" "For what?" "For the truth," Malik said. "For leverage." The realization settled slowly, heavy and unavoidable. The report hadn't vanished by accident. It had been absorbed, neutralized, rendered harmless by a system designed to survive complaints. Malik felt anger rise, then something steadier beneath it. He began to document differently, not just the incident, but the responses, dates of calls returned and not returned, language repeated across departments, the way doors closed politely. Silence, he understood, was not empty. It was engineered. And if it could be built, it could be exposed. Malik looked at the playground photo on his phone, Aisha Midloff, before the cruiser arrived. He locked the screen, feeling the weight of what it would cost to keep going. The letter lay open on the table, definitive and wrong. He didn't tear it up. He added it to the file. The first message arrived at 6:12 a.m., before Malik had finished his coffee. "I saw the video. Same officer stopped my brother last year. Nothing happened." Malik stared at the screen, thumb hovering. He replied with a careful thank you and an offer to talk. By noon, 3 more messages came in. By the end of the week, his inbox had become a quiet archive of near misses and closed doors. People didn't want publicity. They wanted acknowledgement. They wanted someone to say the thing out loud. Lena built a spreadsheet. Names, dates, locations. She said, fingers flying. What was said? What happened after? "They'll say it's anecdotal," Malik said. "They'll say anything," Lena replied. "Patterns don't care." They met families in coffee shops and church basements, in parked cars with engines running, voices low. Stories braided together with eerie consistency. The same officer's phrasing, the same escalation, the same outcome. No charges, no apologies, no record. People spoke in fragments, glancing at doors, at phones. A mother described being told her teenage son matched the vibe. A grandfather laughed bitterly about being thanked for his cooperation after an hour on the curb. A park volunteer remembered watching the playground incident and being warned by a supervisor to stay out of it. Policy, the supervisor had said, don't interfere. Malik noticed how often the word appeared, how rarely it was explained. A local reporter called after Lena sent a tip. They met at a diner off the highway, vinyl booze peeling at the seams. The reporter listened, nodded, asked for documents. "We need more," she said. "One incident is easy to dismiss." "This isn't one," Malik said. She sighed. "Convince my editor." A week later, she emailed back. They passed. Risk-averse right now. At work, Malik felt eyes linger. A colleague pulled him aside. "Just looking out. he said. "These things can follow you." At home, the kids started asking why Daddy was always on the phone. Aisha drew a picture of a swing with a red line through it. Malik put it on the fridge, a small ache settling in his chest. Lena refused to slow down. "We're not begging," she said. "We're building a record." They requested public records. They learned the language of denial, no responsive documents, ongoing investigation, exempt under statute. Each refusal sharpened the outline of the system they were up against. Then the flyer arrived in the mail. Annual Police Youth Camp fundraiser. A smiling officer in the corner. Dates. Speeches. Sponsors listed along the bottom. Lena's finger traced the logos. She stopped. "There," she said. Malik leaned in. His stomach dropped. Carter Family Foundation, platinum sponsor. He remembered the ceremony. The applause. The handshake. The way the officer at the podium had thanked partners who believe in our mission. He remembered believing it too. "They didn't even remove our name," Malik said. "Why would they?" Lena replied, "They don't think this touches them." The night of the fundraiser, Malik stood at the back of the community center, unnoticed. He watched kids in matching shirts run drills. He watched parents take photos. He watched officers smile for the cameras. And then he saw him, the officer from the playground, laughing with a donor, name tag catching the light. Recognition passed across the officer's face when their eyes met. Just a flicker. A recalibration. The officer looked away first. A speaker took the stage, praising community trust. Malik felt the room tilt, the irony thick enough to choke on. He slipped out before the applause. In the car, Lena exhaled. "They can't pretend now." "They will," Malik said, "until they can't." The spreadsheet grew. So did the risks. An anonymous comment appeared online. "Maybe don't poke the bear." A car slowed near their house one evening, idled, moved on. Malik weighed each step. He thought of the families who trusted him with their stories. He thought of the kids in camp shirts, learning drills under banners funded by people the department had failed. The pattern was clear now, not just in the stops, but in the protection, in the way harm was absorbed and redistributed until no one was responsible. Lena looked at him, eyes bright and tired. "We go public," she said, "with everything." Malik nodded slowly. He felt fear, yes, but also clarity. The banner with his name on it fluttered in his mind, a symbol and a lever. The story had widened beyond him. Patterns, once seen, could not be unseen. And once named, they demanded a reckoning. The community center smelled like floor polish and popcorn, a manufactured cheer that tried to smooth over everything else. Malik stood just inside the doors, the hum of voices washing over him in waves. A banner stretched across the far wall, bright and proud, letters thick with gratitude. "Thank you to our sponsors." He didn't look at it right away. He knew what it would say. Still, when he finally lifted his eyes, the sight struck with a physical force, like a hand to the sternum. Carter Family Foundation, platinum sponsor. The letters were clean, confident, untouched by context. Kids in matching camp shirts zigzagged between folding chairs, their sneakers squeaking, laughter ricocheting off the walls. Parents snapped photos. Officers shook hands, accepted praise, adjusted microphones. Malik recognized the choreography, the same one he'd once funded, once believed in. "Mr. Carter," a voice called. Malik toned. A captain he'd met years earlier approached, smile wide, hand extended. "So glad you could make it. We were just about to thank our sponsors publicly." Malik shook his hand, felt the practice grip. "I wanted to see it for myself." The captain laughed. "Well, you should be proud. These programs don't run without partners like you." Malik's gaze drifted past him. There, near the refreshment table, stood the officer from the playground. Same sunglasses pushed up into his hair. Same easy posture. He was laughing with another donor, nodding along, comfortable, protected. The officer glanced up and froze. For a split second, the room contracted to that look, recognition sharpening into calculation. The officer's smile faltered, then reset. He lifted his cup in a small, ironic salute. Malik felt heat rise behind his eyes. He looked back at the captain. "Do you know who responds to calls in the North Parks?" The captain blinked. "We're rotate assignments." "Do you know that officer?" Malik asked, nodding subtly. The captain followed his gaze. "Sure. Solid guy. Community-minded." Malik nodded once. "He stopped my family at a playground." The captain's smile thinned. "I heard something about that. Internal Affairs looked into it." "And close it," Malik said, "while our name stayed on your wall." The captain shifted his weight. "These things can be complicated." A hush fell as the MC took the stage. Applause rippled. The MC beamed. "Tonight, we celebrate partnership," she said. "Trust." Malik watched the officer clap, watched kids line up for certificates, watched his foundation's logo cycle across a screen behind them. The contradiction felt obscene. Lena slipped in beside him, eyes tracking the same banner. "He's here," she murmured. "I know." The MC continued. "Our platinum sponsors have gone above and beyond, investing in our officers, investing in our youth." Malik felt something settle in his chest, heavy and calm. He reached for Lena's hand. "We don't let them thank us." "What?" "We don't let them use us," he said. "Not quietly." The captain leaned closer, voice low. "If you have concerns, this isn't the place." Malik met his eyes. "Then you shouldn't have put my name on the wall." The officer approached, steps measured. "Mr. Carter," he said, voice smooth. "No hard feelings about the other day." Lena stiffened. Malik held her hand tighter. "You put my kids in fear." The officer shrugged. "I did my job." "Your job," Malik said, "ended at harassment." The officer's smile flickered. He lowered his voice. "Careful." Malik laughed once, a sound that surprised even him. "You already took careful from us." The MC announced the foundation's name. Applause swelled. Malik stepped forward. "I'm Malik Carter," he said, not into the MIC but loud enough to carry. Heads turned. "And I don't consent to this." The MC faltered. The captain raised his hands. "Let's talk privately." "No," Malik said. "Public works better." Phones rose. The officer took a step back. "Our foundation sponsors youth," Malik continued, voice steady. "We don't sponsor abuse. We don't sponsor silence. And we won't be thanked while complaints are buried." The room buzzed. Parents whispered. Kids looked confused. The banner loomed, suddenly fragile. The captain leaned in, urgent. "You're making a scene." Malik nodded. "Good." Security edged closer, but stopped when cameras multiplied. The MC cleared her throat. We'll take a brief pause." Malik turned to the banner one last time. "Take our name down," he said. "Tonight." The officer stared at the floor. As Malik and Lena walked out, the noise followed them into the parking lot. Questions, calls, the brittle sound of a performance cracking. Malik felt his hand shake only after the doors closed behind them. In the car, Lena exhaled, long and shaky. "That was it," she said. "There's no going back." Malik looked at the building, the banner hidden now but not gone. He thought of the spreadsheet, the letters, the kids' drawings. He thought of the officer's salute, the captain's smile. "No," he said, "there isn't." His phone buzzed. Alerts, messages, a reporter's name flashing across the screen. Malik didn't answer yet. He sat with the weight of it, the cost now undeniable. The name on the banner had been leveraged all along, and they'd just pulled it. By morning, the video was everywhere. Not the playground clip alone, though it resurfaced, grainy and raw, but a longer thread Lena released at dawn. Screenshots of the sponsorship banner, the internal affairs letter, email stamped no further action warranted. A timeline laid out cleanly, mercilessly, captioned with one sentence. Accountability shouldn't depend on who pays a bill. Malik watched the notifications stack like falling dominoes. Journalists, advocates, city staffers who had once replied with form letters now typing in real time. The story jumped platforms, stripped of hedging. A contradiction too clear to spin. At 10, a city spokesperson emailed, "We are reviewing the matter." At 11, a council member tweeted concern. At noon, The police department released a statement praising community partners and affirming commitment to fairness, carefully avoiding names. "Say it," Lena muttered, scrolling. "Say his name." They didn't. Not yet. The officer's name surfaced anyway, pulled from public records and old complaints that suddenly found oxygen. Former colleagues spoke anonymously about warnings ignored. A retired sergeant posted a thread about bad apples protected by baskets. The phrase trended for hours. Malik went to work and was sent home out of an abundance of caution. On the drive back, he noticed the way every car felt like it might be watching. Fear returned in a new shape, bigger, louder, accompanied by a sense of inevitability. A reporter from the diner called again. "My editor wants everything," she said. "On the record." They met in a studio with lights too bright to hide behind. Malik answered questions carefully, naming facts, not feelings. Lena spoke about the kids, about the moment Aisha asked if Daddy was in trouble. The clip aired that evening, spliced with footage from a fundraiser and a still of the banner. Public response cracked open. Support poured in alongside threats. "Traitor. Attention seeker. You're hurting good cops." Malik learned to read past the noise, to locate the messages that mattered. Parents thanking him for saying what they couldn't. Officers admitting quiet relief. The department announced an internal review. This time, they named the officer. Administrative leave. The chief said at a press conference. Pending investigation. Reporters pressed. Why was the complaint closed? How many similar complaints exist? Why was a major sponsor not informed? The chief deflected. The questions didn't stop. That night, Malik found a note under the wiper of their car. "Think about your kids." No signature. The words felt oily, designed to linger. Malik handed it to Lena without comment. They sat at the kitchen table until the kids fell asleep, the house holding its breath with them. "Are we doing the right thing?" Malik asked finally. Lena didn't answer right away. She looked at the note, then at the spreadsheet, then at the cartoon characters flickering on the muted TV. "There isn't a right thing that's also easy," she said. "There's just honest." The next morning, a second statement dropped, this one acknowledging failures and oversight. The city announced an external investigator. Names followed. Dates. The officer's history unfurled like a document long overdue for daylight. Former complainants stepped forward. One described the same phrasing Malik remembered. Another shared an audio clip from a traffic stop. The pattern hardened into proof. The officers' union released a rebuttal. It landed flat. At school pickup, parents approached Malik with tentative smiles. Aisha clung to his hand. "They're talking about you," she whispered. "I know," Malik said. "It's okay." She nodded, unconvinced. The investigation moved faster than Malik expected. Emails flew. Requests arrived for testimony. He learned how to breathe through interviews, how to pause when anger surged. He learned that exposure wasn't a single act but a grind, truth met by resistance, again and again. A week later, the chief stood at the podium again. "We have concluded that officer violated department policy," he said. "Effective immediately, he is terminated." Applause erupted somewhere off camera. Malik watched from the couch, hands clasped, heart racing. Relief flickered and was gone. The chief continued. "We are implementing reforms." Malik muted the TV. "That's it?" he asked. "It's a start," Lena said. The officer released a statement through his attorney, denying wrongdoing and accusing Malik of orchestrating a smay. The union promised arbitration. Online, the threats flared, then waned, crowded out by the next news cycle. Malik felt emptied. Victory tasted thin. He thought of the families who'd waited years for this moment, of the nights he'd stared at the ceiling, of the way the system only moved when cornered by contradiction. A letter arrived from the city requesting a meeting about future partnerships. Malik laughed, a short, tired sound. He didn't respond. Instead, he drafted a statement of his own, measured, clear. He thanked supporters, named the harm, insisted on independent oversight as a condition for any future funding. He sent it and closed his laptop. That evening, Malik stood in the backyard as the kids played tag, their laughter attentive but real. The sky bruised into dusk. His phone buzzed with one last alert. Officer files appeal. Malik slipped the phone into his pocket. Exposure had done its work. Consequences had followed, imperfect and contested. The cost was etched into his body now, a constant hum. He watched Aisha sprint, then stumble, then laugh harder when she didn't fall. Malik breathed in the cool air and let it out slowly. The truth was out. What it would change, what it would cost next, remained to be seen. The hearing room was smaller than Malik expected. No grand chamber, no high ceilings, just beige walls, a long table, and microphones that hummed when no one spoke. The mundanity felt intentional, a way to shrink what had happened into something manageable. Malik sat between Lena and a community advocate, hands folded, palms damp. Across the table, the officer sat with his attorney, posture stiff, eyes fixed on the spot just past Malik's shoulder. The officer did not look at him. Not once. "Please state your name for the record," the chair said. Malik did. His voice sounded steadier than he felt. They asked him to recount the playground. Malik described the swing, the cuffs, the way his daughter's voice had thinned to a whisper. He named words carefully, resisting the urge to editorialize. When the attorney cross-examined, the tone shifted, polite, precise, exhausting. "Isn't it true," the attorney asked, "that my client was responding to a call?" "Yes," Malik said, "and he escalated without cause." "Isn't it possible you misinterpreted his tone?" "No," Malik replied. "It was clear." The attorney tried again. "You're a sponsor of police programs, correct?" "I was," Malik said. "So you had influence." Malik leaned forward. "If I had influence," he said, "this wouldn't have taken this long." A murmur rippled through the room. When Lena spoke, her voice shook only once. She described recording, the way officers tried to stop her, the note on the car. The chair thanked her for her courage. Malik knew how much that single sentence cost. The officer testified last. He denied bias, framed the stop as procedure, described Malik as agitated. When shown the video, he shrugged. That's how these things look out of context. Malik felt heat flare and force it down. Context, he'd learned, was always granted to power. After hours of testimony, the chair recessed. Malik stepped into the hallway, legs unsteady. A reporter approached. "Do you feel justice has been served?" Malik paused. "Ask me when it's over." The decision came weeks later. The termination stood. Arbitration denied. The department released a report acknowledging systemic failures, training gaps, oversight lapses, a culture that discouraged complaints. It promised reforms with timelines and committees. The officer appealed publicly and lost quietly. Consequences arrived unevenly. The officer found work outside the department. The union fumed. The city allocated funds for oversight. Malik's inbox filled with invitations. To speak, to advise, to join boards. He declined most. At home, the cost showed itself in small ways. Malik startled at sirens. He avoided the park. Aisha slept with the light on. The twins asked if police were good or bad, a question Malik refused to answer simply. "They are people," he said, "and systems shape what people do." The community organized a forum. Malik spoke, not as a symbol but as a father. He listened more than he talked. He learned that consequence wasn't only punishment, it was change pressed into habit. One evening, Malik received a message from a former officer. "Thank you." It read, "We needed this." Malik stared at the words, then closed the app. He didn't know how to hold gratitude without letting it soften the harm. The city removed the banner. The foundation's name disappeared from websites. In its place appeared a new line item, independent oversight funded by private donors. Malik agreed to contribute, with conditions written in ink, not smiles. At a school assembly, Aisha raised her hand when the principal talked about fairness. "My dad said it's not a feeling," she said. "It's a practice." Malik felt his throat tighten. Consequences, he realized, were not a single verdict but a series of doors that opened and closed. Some stayed open only if pushed every day. He walked past the playground one afternoon and stopped at the gate. The swings moved in the wind, empty. Malik stood there longer than he meant to, listening to the chains click, remembering the way time had stalled. He didn't go in. Not yet. The first time Malik slept through the night again, he woke up disoriented, as if he'd missed something important. The quiet felt suspicious. He lay still, listening for the distant wail of sirens, for the creak of a door, for the sound of his own heart racing. Nothing came. The house held. Down the hall, Aisha's light was on. Malik patted barefoot to her room and knocked softly. "Hey," he whispered. She sat up, eyes wide but dry. "I couldn't sleep." "Me neither," Malik said, and meant something different. They sat together on the edge of the bed. Aisha traced circles on the blanket. "Are they still mad at you?" "Some people are," Malik said. "Some people aren't." "Will they take you away?" "No," he said. "Steady. I won't let that happen." She nodded, absorbing the promise the way children do, testing its weight against the world. Malik kissed her forehead and left the light on. The twins' questions came later, blunt and unfiltered. Why did that cop lie? Why didn't anyone help? Malik answered honestly without being cruel. He talked about fear and power and responsibility. He told them systems could change and that people could help change them. He didn't tell them how tired he felt. Lena carried the weight differently. She moved fast, organized everything, filled calendars. At night, she stared at the ceiling. One evening, she snapped at Malik over nothing and then cried, furious at herself for the release. "I'm so angry," she said, "and I don't know where to put it." "Hey," Malik said, pulling her close. They sat on the kitchen floor until the anger softened into something they could hold together. The invitation slowed. The threats faded. What remained was a residue. Emails Malik couldn't open. Parks he avoided, the way his shoulders rose when a cruiser passed. He started therapy at Lena's urging. The counselor listened without interruption and said the word trauma gently, as if it was something Malik could choose to accept. He did. Weeks turned into months. Oversight meetings began. Malik attended the first, then stepped back, insisting the board include voices he'd met in basements and parked cars. He funded stipends for those who couldn't afford to volunteer their time. Change, he learned, was labor. One afternoon, Malik found Aisha's drawing again, the swing with a red line through it. He taped it beside a newer picture, the same swing, this time with chalk hearts on the ground beneath it. He asked her about it. "That's when we go back," she said. "When?" Malik asked. "When it feels different." He nodded. He didn't rush it. At a neighborhood cookout, a man approached Malik and cleared his throat. "I used to think this stuff was exaggerated," he said. "I'm sorry." Malik thanked him and kept moving. Apologies were bridges. Some led somewhere, some ended at water. The Foundation's first report on oversight came out. It was imperfect, specific, public. Malik read it twice and sent notes. He learned to accept progress without pretending it was closure. Late one evening, Malik stood in the doorway of the garage, listening to rain drum the roof. The note from the windshield flashed in his mind, then faded. Fear had shrunk, but it hadn't vanished. It had changed shape, like grief. Lena joined him. "You did what you could," she said. "We did," Malik corrected. She smiled. "We did." The cost was etched into their routines now. Extra locks checked twice, conversations rehearsed before school meetings, a vigilance that never fully relaxed. Malik grieved the ease he'd lost. He also recognized the resilience they built in its place. Aisha came running in, barefoot, laughing. "Daddy, it stopped raining." Malik stepped outside with her. The air smelled clean, the street washed bright. A police cruiser rolled by, slow and ordinary. Malik felt the old reflex twitch, and pass. He squeezed Aisha's hand. The swing waited somewhere beyond the trees, patient. The cost of speaking had been high. The cost of silence, he knew now, would have been higher. He breathed in and out, grounding himself in the moment, and felt something like peace settle, not complete, not permanent, but real enough to stand on. The gate squeaked the same way it always had. Malik paused with his hand on the latch, listening to the familiar complaint of metal on metal, testing whether the sound still carried the weight he remembered. The playground looked unchanged in daylight, fresh mulch, bright paint, the geometry of childhood laid out with optimism. Still, Malik stood still, calibrating his breath. Aisha tugged his sleeve. "We can leave if you want." I want to stay, Malik said, surprising himself. They walked in together. The twins ran ahead, claiming the slide like a victory. Aisha stopped at the swing set, eyes flicking to Malik's face, then to the chains. Malik nodded. She climbed on. He pushed once. Gently. The swing moved. A clean arc. Aisha laughed, loud and unguarded. Malik felt the sound land in his chest and stay. Other parents watched without staring. A city worker swept near the benches. A cruiser passed on the street beyond the fence and kept going. No doors opened. No commands cut the air. Malik sat on the bench and let the moment exist. The oversight board met later that week. Malik attended as a guest, not a fixture. He listened as data were presented, as timelines were debated, as community members spoke with confidence that had been hard-won. When his turn came, Malik kept it brief. Justice isn't a headline, he said. It's maintenance. They nodded. Someone wrote it down. The Foundation's funds now flowed to independent audits, to legal clinics, to youth programs run without badges. The police camps continued, reshaped and watched, their curricula revised by people who'd once been ignored. Malik didn't pretend to solve everything. He didn't need to. At home, routines returned. Homework at the table. Dinner arguments about vegetables. Aisha slept with the light off. Malik still checked locks, still flinched at sudden noises, but the edges had softened. One evening, a letter arrived from a parent Malik had met months earlier. My son says he wants to be an officer who doesn't hurt people. It read, "Thank you for showing him what accountability looks like." Malik folded the letter and placed it in the file, not as evidence, but as reminder. He walked back to the playground alone at dusk. The swings moved in the breeze, empty now. Malik stood where he had stood before, the memory rising and passing like a tide. He didn't rush it away. He let it be what it was. Justice hadn't erased the harm. It hadn't returned the lost ease or the quiet trust he once carried without noticing. What it had done, what it continued to do, was create space. Space to breathe. Space to insist. Space to refuse disappearance. Malik left the park and closed the gate behind him. The squeak sounded smaller this time. On the walk home, he thought of the systems he'd learned to see, the patterns he'd helped expose, the work that would outlast him. He thought of the cost and of the choice, made again and again, to speak anyway. At the corner, he stopped and looked back once more. The playground lights clicked on, steady and unremarkable. Malik smiled, a real one, and turned toward home. What remained wasn't a triumph. It was a practice, and Malik intended to keep it.